Welcome to Blonde Cards and Crafts. Let's make something together. Hello everyone, welcome to Blonde Cards and Crafts. Today I'm going to show you this lovely cupcake stenciled card. As you can see on the front, it has "Congratulations daughter" and it has "New job" in VersaFine black ink, and the little cupcakes I've stenciled on using distress ink in broken china. On the inside I've put a stamped sentiment wishing you all the best. This card has got some hearts on it and I'd like to show you how I made it. So I've started with some blue card. This paper is about 80 GSM in weight and it's a lovely pale, what I would call baby blue. I've also used some paper. This is an A4 paper pad. It's water paper, and I thought this would be best for using with my distress inks. I've used this and I've cut down a panel using my Fiskars, and the panel that I've cut down is 8 inches by 4¼ inches. So what I've done is I've taken the A4 sheet of paper and a panel in the blue and a panel in the white. So I'm going to have some mats and layers on top of the card. The card itself I have cut, it's 8½ by 8 inches, and the reason I have done this was I wanted a long thin panel on the front, and generally I buy my cards with matching envelopes. They're ready made either in 5x7 or 6x6 or 8x8, but the size I wanted to make I didn't have in my stash, so I made it myself, and I used my We Are Memory Keepers score and cutting board to do this. So I cut the card and then I scored it. And I like to score when I'm making the cards myself on both sides. I find when I score on both sides I get a nicer fold, and there isn't any cracking or anything, and everything just seems to match up and meet up nicely. So that's why I do it on both sides. So I've scored and folded my card, and that's nice and ready to go for when I have my panels and my mats and layers done. So I'll put my scoreboard away, and I'm going to take the panel that I've cut down, which is just under 8 by 4¼ and I'm going to use some of my purple tape to tape that down to my craft mat. Now I'm using my Tim Holtz glass medium mat, and where I'm sticking the tape down I'm allowing myself 1/4 inch all around, so that when I finish doing my stencil and I take the tape off, I'll have a nice white border going all the way round. The ink I'm using for this is broken china. And here you can see the little cupcakes that I die cut out on my Gemini Go. I've cut out a number of them, and 2 of them I've stuck on a piece of card, and this I just used it. I thought it would be easier for holding the 2 cupcakes down together, you know, rather than using one cupcake. I thought it would give a nicer look. I've also got some of my blending tools. These are ones that I got from eBay. They're the Emax design, and they cost me, including shipping, just under 20 euros. And I find them great. They do the job just perfectly. And you know, the picket fence ones I'd love to have and everything, but they're a little bit dear for my budget. So I've taken my little cupcakes. I've started at the bottom of my panel, and I'm just gently and lightly putting down some of my Distress Oxide ink. And I'm trying to give like a brick effect so that the cupcakes are just off from each other. So the middle of one cupcake is underneath where the two cupcakes are together, just so it has, I suppose, a staggered look is what I'm kind of going for. So I've nice and gently taken the ink and I'm placing my cupcakes down and then going over it with the ink and brushing it on. Sorry about that, my camera had a bit of a wobble. I use my phone for doing my recording. I have a Samsung S8 and I use it for my editing as well, so sometimes it kind of has a little zooming wobble while I'm recording. So I just go along doing doing a line at a time, moving my little cupcakes along and going over it with my blending brush and the ink. I'm making sure to get inside the little grooves and everything. On the other cards I made, I used butterflies and they were a solid butterfly and I found they worked just as well, but I liked the little bit of definition that was in the cupcake. So I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to go all around the outside edge just to define the edge for when I take the tape off. And I'm also going to go over the cupcakes themselves. I'm going to do a very light blending over them. I just don't want the stark white, with the blue ink color from the broken china. I just would like it to be more subtle, so I'm going to go over the whole panel with my blending tool very, very lightly over all the little cupcakes. So when that's done and the tape is off, I'm really quite pleased with it. The little cupcake stencils that I've used, they're quite fine. I'm going to pop them into the drawer and I'm going to get another use out of them. Because I've used the watercolor paper, I think because it's heavier, it wore really well. And I'm going to clean off my blending brushes using a baby wipe. I just use 1 or 2 wipes on that to clean it off, and then I'll take a dry microfiber cloth and use that, and on some scrap paper I'll just check and make sure that there's no residue of my ink in the brush. And although it will look like there is a bit of ink down towards the base of the brush, as you can see there, the actual head itself is clean and it will be perfect for when I go to use it with a different color. So now I'm going to take my panel that I've stenciled and I'm going to put it onto this blue layer, and then the blue layer is going to go onto my white card base. And to do that, you can use your wet glue. I have Nuvo glue and I have some of the Aliens tacky glue, as well as tape runners. And I find any of them will work perfectly. But for this, I'm going to use my Stick-it tape runner. I'm not too worried about getting it down evenly the whole way around, and usually I will use wet glue if I'm a little worried about getting things lined up. But I was pretty confident putting this down that I get the panel on straight onto my blue layer and then put that straight onto the card. And I don't mind if things are a little wonky, to be honest, because let's face it, this is a handmade card. It's not a Hallmark card. If you want something that's perfectly printed and perfectly put down, then go to your local shop and buy a card. But this is handmade. This has been, put together. It has heart and thought in it. And that's what I like. So yeah, and by the looks of things, I got everything on there straight. So I was quite pleased with that. Now, to embellish the front, I have cut out a sentiment, congratulations, in some white card. Now, it's too long to go across the front, so what I've done is I've gently curved the sentiment and it's going to fit here perfectly. I've also got the word daughter because this card is for my daughter Caitlin. And I'm going to put 2 layers of white die cut as well as 1 blue layer onto the card. So it'll give it a kind of a chipboard effect. It will have depth without using foam tape. It will be more even, I think. Sometimes I like to do it that way, and sometimes I'll just use foam tape behind it. But I think this will be nice. You know, I'm going to put a little bit of Stella on it as well as some glossy accents over the top when I'm done, and that'll be perfect. So with the congratulations, I'm going to use my tweezers. I find when I'm using a liquid glue that it really helps to use the tweezers to get your sentiments or your words down. And that's what I'm going to use here. And the liquid glue will give me a little bit of wiggle room, a little bit of time in order to make sure that the sentiment is on the way I want it, that it's on straight and that it's evenly curved as well. And as you can see, I'm using a stamping block to put on top of the die cut words. I just think the little bit of weight when you use the block on top to hold them down, it just helps them to stick more evenly to your card. So I've got my little cupcakes here and I'm going to put some glue on them. I'm going to layer them up as well. So like the word daughter, there'll be a little bit of depth to each of my cupcakes. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. I'm happy with the placement. The only other thing I need to do is put down my little word that I'm going to stamp. Now, I really should have done it before I stuck the daughter down, but this is going to work fine. I'm going to use another one of my blocks and I'm going to use my VersaFine Onyx black ink to put this down. This word, this sentiment that I'm going to stamp down, it's just new job. And I got this set from AliExpress. It's just your generic words and it works a treat. So that's stamped down nicely. And I've got some of these punched out little hearts. I bought there about 3 weeks ago in Lidl's this set of punches from Lidl's. And the hearts are just a nice size for going on cards. So I have some of the blue paper and I've punched out my hearts and I'm going to stick them down. Now, when you're putting embellishments on a card, it's always best to do it in uneven numbers. The mind seems to prefer an uneven number amount compared to an even number. So I'm going to put a Stella on my hearts, on my cupcakes and on my word daughter. And then I'm going to take some of my glossy accents and go over them. But before I put my glossy accents on, I want to put my sentiment inside. And this Happy Travels bumper 40p stamp set, I got that from Card Making and Papercraft magazine and it came free. And it's a fantastic stamp set. It's got everything from cars and bicycles and motorbikes and the whole lot on it. But the sentiment I really liked, wishing you all the best. Now, as you can see, I was rubbing that on my hand. And the reason I do that is when the stamps are made, there's sometimes a residue on the stamp and you can use a baby wipe or a microfiber cloth, but I just wipe them on the back of my hand and it seems to work. Now, I would usually use my stamping platforms to stamp this down, but I'm going to use a block and my VersaFine ink, and hopefully I'm going to get it centered and it's going to stamp down evenly. How do we do? Yes, it works. I got it nice and even. The only thing is there's no dot at the end of the sentiment, you all the best. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a micron pen and I'm going to put my full stop. But before I do that, I've got some extra cupcakes and love hearts that I die cut and punched out, and I love to embellish a card on the inside. I think cards are fabulous when they're done outside, but when there's a little bit of the outside put on the inside, just to, you know, bring everything together, I think that really looks well, and that's something I like to do. So I've got my 2 cupcakes, I've glued them down, and I'm going to put 3 little hearts around the wishing you all the best sentiment. One will be above the W. The second heart is going to be just over by the G. And then the third heart is going to be just underneath the U. So they're nicely spaced around the sentiment. So again, I'm using my blocks just to hold them down. And there we go, putting our little full stop in with our micron pen. And I used a 0.8 micron pen to do that. Now, I love to put a little bit of Wink of Stella on things. I think there's nothing like a little bit of sparkle to make you smile. And that's what the Wink of Stella does. So I'm going to put that on the hearts and the cupcakes inside. Now we've that all done, we can go back to the front of the card. I'm going to put down my glossy accents, so I'm going to weight the front of the card down using some of my stamping blocks. I've put a little bit of the glossy accents on each of the hearts, and then I'm going to put some on over my cupcakes. And then I figured I might put some on the daughter. I wasn't too sure whether the nozzle would give me a fine enough flow to get it nicely on the sentiment, but I figured I would give it a go. So once I have my cupcakes nicely filled in, and if there was any little air bubbles in there, I would take my pokey tool just to, you know, get them out of it. And then I had to go with putting it on the word daughter. And you know what? The flow was, it was just perfect. It didn't come out too thick and went on nicely over each of the letters. So that's it now. That'll be my card finished. I'll just leave that sit to dry. I hope you liked watching what I've done, and I hope you'll give it a go. If you do give it a go, please tag me on social media. Here are some of the other cards that I've made.